adductor magnus, right? We're going to use this ball on the chair. A firmer chair is better so that we can release that biggest of the adductor muscles. Why is that important? These muscles of the inner thigh, right, pull the legs toward each other. They can push that top of the femur out of the socket, stretching and putting pressure on the iliotibial band. If you're having that iliotibial band pain, shin stuff, outer hip issues, sciatica, any of that, if you do not address the inner thighs, you cannot get better. I have seen it literally thousands of times, right? Literally thousands of times. So the inner thighs are the key. And in this series, we're working in different ways to work with them. So separate your feet a little wide, get familiar. Use your hands, rub the inner thighs. And then you're going to make little fists and you're going to bang on them. Staying up tall. For 3, 2, and 1. That feels good, right? Okay. Take your larger ball, and it could be a softball as well. You could use your softball. Take your larger ball. Feel your sitting bones on the chair, right? If I kind of lift up and feel the bottom of the pelvis, those sitting bones right on the chair. Scooting forward toward the front of the chair a little bit, and you just might have to scoot around. You're going to take that firmer ball and slide it right in front of the sitting bone. Now, you might have to lift yourself up a little bit to sink into it. I have very little pressure on my hands. If your wrists hurt, you can make little fists with the thumbs forward. And I want you to kind of rock forward and back a moment. Just feel right. And here's where I am, right below the sitting bone, up and down, because we're going to go to the very inside of that in just a moment. So up and down. Now, here's where we get into adductor magnus. We're going to scoot the butt to the right so the ball comes a little bit toward the inside, and then drop that right knee. Ah, and there it is. We're just to the inside of that tendon where we were. That's the hamstrings tendon at the top. And then to get to, if we keep the knee forward, we can't get into that adductor magnus. So we scoot the butt to the right and drop the right knee in toward the left. It's so magic, that little spot in there. And we've done this on a ball on the floor, side lying. And this is a great way if you have trouble getting up and down off the floor, or if you just have a few minutes and you're sitting in a chair, grab a ball and get in there. And then I find myself kind of just wiggling my pelvis a little side to side. I'm going to turn the chair so you can see where that ball is a little bit better. And kind of go up and down and move a little slowly. See where you can find that special tension, that special spot, right? The spot that feels important. Sink in and just take a couple of breaths. A little bit of pressure. If you want more pressure, you might lean forward. You might try that twist to the opposite side to play with different angles of it. I find if I just kind of scoot around a little bit, I can get it's like we're pushing the hamstrings almost to the side because the adductor magnus lines along and then deep to the hamstrings, right up by the sitting bone toward the inside. Lots of folks come to me and say, I have hamstring tendon issues, and it's right on the inside of the sitting bone. It's not hamstrings, it's adductor magnus. Strong pull on the outer hips can really be the secret cause of iliotibial band issues and outer hip issues and knee problems. Okay, so we're going to go down, slide down a little bit with that bigger ball. Keep the knee dropped in. And then maybe wiggle. Play with the angle of the foot. If you lift the foot up higher, that's going to drop more pressure and kind of shift the angle a little bit on there. And just kind of wiggling on it, Maybe a little side to side, maybe a little up and down. So good. It's so good. If you're a leg crosser, if you're a cyclist, if you use your legs, this is a big, important practice. So sinking into the ball, finding a way to let the rest of your body be as comfortable as possible. Breaths in the belly. And again. Great. We're going to go down even a little bit further. We have to stay with that knee dropped in. It's going up and down along there. Play with the angle of the foot. If the foot drops completely, you're in the hamstrings. Lifting the foot, dropping the knee. That's my spot, right? That's a spot for me right there. I'm just going to take a few more breaths here. You can do some wiggling. And then after a while, sink in. Try to let your thigh sink into that ball, releasing adductor magnus. It has the strongest pull of the femur toward the inside, legs towards each other. Okay, we're going to move off that ball. Actually, let's just do a little side to side on the hamstrings, because who doesn't like that, right? We're just going to take a few breaths, going side to side over the hamstrings, using that firmer ball that you've got. Clunk, 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 clunk. Hamstrings are chunky. It's normal for them to be kind of chunky. Your muscles should have some tone. Your muscles should have some shape. Everything shouldn't feel soft. So sometimes people are like, it just feels weird. And I said, well, do you have pain? No, not there. Okay, then it's fine, right? Muscles are chunky and we're rolling over layers of tissues. Okay, we're gonna move off that ball, sit up and do kind of a flip-flop, but just with the knees. We often do our flip-flop on the floor, which we're gonna do later in this class. And just kind of wave the knees in and out, in and out. Moistening, hydrating, sliding the muscles on each other. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Relax, sit up tall, big deep breath. Okay, we're gonna do that on the other side now. So feeling that sitting bone on the left side, it's kind of right where your butt fold is, called the gluteal fold. And right there's that sitting bone. And then attaching to the very bottom of it is the hamstrings. So I just want you to find that tendon, because I want you to be aware that it's not where we're gonna work. So you might sit up on there, go a little up and down, supporting yourself as you need. If you got wrist issues and I'm not having to work real hard to lift up. You could use your bottom foot to kind of push and lift so that you're not holding yourself up all with your arms. And then now as you bump into that sitting bone or get to the top of that tendon, scoot your butt left a little bit and then drop that left knee in toward the right and sit up. You should just be right inside, right to the inside. Here's that thick tendon of gracilis that we've been working with, and dropping that left knee into the right. Feel free to play around, adjust, lift the foot, right? What's the right angle? Do you need to sit over it for more pressure? If you sit back, it's going to be less pressure. Sitting over it's going to drive your weight down into that ball. Maybe a little wiggle, maybe a little forward and back rocking. Find a spot that's tender. I bet you have one. And then relax there. Relax your jaw. Soften your eyes. Play with a little twist to the right, perhaps. See how that shifts that angle just a little bit. Okay. if I rock forward a little bit, I really get the angle that feels the most exciting. But still, I can breathe, right? If it's super tender, back off a little bit, right? If it's causing you to catch your breath, back off a little bit, take a deeper breath. Okay, now we're gonna go down that inside line, so moving the ball down a little bit. Left knee drops in to the right. And then rocking a little forward and back, maybe a little side to side. Maybe play with the foot lift. For me, it works just fine on this side for the foot to be down. And yes, you might feel it in the outer hip. You might feel it up in the pelvis. Adductor magnus can radiate pain up into the pelvis. Nice. Take a couple of breaths here. Relax your jaw. Maybe a little wiggle. And we're going to keep on going down a little bit further toward midway down. Keeping the angle. So we want to stay in those inner thighs, but toward the back of the inner thighs. It's like halfway between the very inside of the thigh and the very back of the thigh. We're in that pocket halfway. I want more pressure, so I'm like lifting my whole body up so that I can sink down, find a spot. Find yourself in a spot, and if you don't find one, it might be that you don't have a trigger point there, but it's still beneficial to give some compression on the tissue. And I'm going to sink in right there. Just a couple more breaths here. This muscle has the strongest pull of the thighs toward each other, pushing the top of the femur out of the hip socket, straining the iliotibial band and straining the outer hip muscles. Super key practice to know how to do. We've done this adductor magnus a few different ways in this class, in this series. We're going to move off of that ball enough so that we can slide it under the hamstrings and do our little hamstring slide, side to side with the thigh. I'm about in that bottom half, halfway down the back of the thigh. And this rolling over those bumps of the hamstrings helps to separate the hamstring muscles. There are 3 of them. One of them has 2 heads, biceps femoris, so there's like 4 heads of hamstring muscles here. So just kind of clunk over them a little bit with that ball. It's going to help free them and really hydrate because they're right next to each other and they get sticky to each other. One more breath here. Okay, now we're going to move off the ball, put the ball down, sitting up and doing our knee waves, our knee flip-flops. Sit up tall through your spine, waving the knees in and out. Really rotating the femurs in the sockets, cleaning it out, helping to avoid bone spurs and arthritis developing in your hips. For 5, 4, 3, 2, wave them really fast. And 1. Feel all that energy in your legs. Sit up tall, big deep breath in the belly. Great, we're going to come back to standing and do that wide angle side to side again. Hands on the chair. So come back to the chair, stepping your feet wide. Maybe the elbows go. Oh, that feels so much freer to me. So going side to side and want you to see that my back is nice and long. So you have to kind of tilt your pelvis. If your pelvis is tucking under, that's not good for your low back. So you could bend the knees, tilt the pelvis, and go side to side. And you can choose how wide apart your legs are from each other. You could get way down, or you can stay up. Just keep going 3 more times to each side. 3. Toes turned out a little bit. 2. And 1. Come to stand. Point the toes forward. Straight legs, wag the tail. And then heel toe your feet in toward each other. One leg lift to each side. Left leg stands. Right hip lifts. Right leg goes out to the side. Maybe so much higher. And then right leg stands. Left hip lifts. Left leg goes out to the side. For me, so much higher. The hips are already stronger because they're not being pulled by those inner thighs.